Let's begin.
Hey there, scary story fanatics. Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopathic. It's time to take to the skies, or the streets for you heroes unable to fly. Tonight, we return to the man with the hand, making friends with one who knows exactly what he wants. So, sit back, relax, until your next crusade. It's time for DB420's Not All Heroes Wear Capes, Book 2, Chapter 4, Anything You Want Me to Be.
I was finally able to return to both my day job and my night job after recovering from nap time. I had a few residual effects of my run-in with him, and I was left with an occasional weakness in my knee joints, causing them to give out here and there. It wasn't enough to cause me to fall, but it was just enough to make one leg stop working for just a second, causing me to have to catch myself whenever it randomly happened. It made me feel old. It wasn't a problem that I ever had before, but now it was something that I had to subconsciously be aware of. I was still on the lookout for the gold digger, and I was beginning to think that he had gone into hiding, or just left the city entirely. Maybe he crawled off and died somewhere, and the city's rats had eaten him up. Eventually, I got my answer. Some homeless folks had told me about a guy that they had seen around the camps recently. He had one arm, but always kept himself hidden under a ragged cloak, so that you couldn't really tell that he was missing an arm. But it was the gold that he brought to the people that got their attention. He always had some strange item that was made of solid gold. This had to be him. But that didn't sound like him at all. Giving gold to the homeless? That wasn't his MO. He was more of the affluent, take whatever you want for yourself type of person. I watched the streets for a man in a ragged cloak scouring the homeless camps around the southern end of the city. There were lots of fast food places, a bottle redemption center, and lots of smaller businesses. It was a place that provided a great environment for finding easy money and quick food. So, it was a gathering place for many vagrants.
"Hey man, who you looking for?"
An African-American man asked as he stood cooking some food over a fire. "I'm looking for a guy with one arm. He's been giving people gold. I think I might know him, and I would like to talk to him again," I replied, giving him a partial truth.
"Oh, I know who you mean. Guy with blonde hair? Pretty boy. Wears a dirty cloak."
The man told me. "Yeah, that's him. Do you know where I can find him?" I asked him, a bit excited that I had finally picked up on a hint of willingness to talk to me about him at all.
Yeah, I can tell you where to find him, but it's going to cost you,"
he answered. "All right, how much do you want?" I asked him as I reached into my wallet.
"No man, I don't want your money. All I ask is a favor,"
he said, holding his hands up to stop me. "Okay, what do you need?" I agreed.
"I need you to tell old Willie over there that Ken and Darla stole his money from his tent,"
the man requested, pointing to a chubby, bald guy and then a pair of scrawny folks with thinned-out faces. Okay. Why don't you go do it yourself?" I asked him.
Willie don't care much for me, and I don't want him to shoot the messenger. But Ken and Darla are the real piece of work, and be honest, I'd rather they move on somewhere else.
The man informed me, honestly. All right, I can do that. I agreed, before going over to talk to Willie. Hey, man, I said to him.
What do you want?
He asked, angeredly and cautiously. A friend of mine told me that it was Ken and Darla that took your money. I told him bluntly.
Those fucking junkies. I'm gonna rip them a new one.
Willie said as he slowly huffed away. All right, I said as I returned to the man that had sent me on my side quest. Where can I find him? I asked.
Thank you very much. You can find him right here every Friday night.
The man informed me, very happy to have done business with me, and as I left, I could hear old Willie screaming his head off at the scrawny man that angeredly called him a liar. I hoped that the old guy wouldn't be too rough on the skinny 20-something-year-old one. When I came back on Friday, though, my fears were realized when I saw the police tape that blocked off that part of the camp, and most of the camp had picked up and moved further down the field by the highway on-ramp. After I asked around a little bit, I found out that the small junkie had pulled out a knife and stabbed Willie to death. A death that ultimately, when it all came down to it, I caused. I felt a little bad about it, but after the things that I had done, I was just numb to a lot of it. I didn't really feel much at all anymore. Perhaps I was becoming like one of the villains that I sought to bring down. I looked for the African-American man that had given me the information, but I didn't find him. He probably felt bad about getting someone killed and moved on. I did, however, find my target. I watched as a man walked between the tents and hastily built wooden shacks. He stood hunched a bit to one side and had a dirty, brown, patchy cloak covering his body. Gold digger, I said quietly to myself before pursuing him. Gotcha, Goldilocks, I said as I ripped his cloak from him and spun him around in the process. I reached out to place my death hand upon him, but quickly stopped myself in horror. This wasn't the gold digger. This was just some terrified old man, an innocent person that I nearly killed in my own fit of vengeance. I'm sorry. I thought you were someone else, I said, handing his cloak back to him. The man quickly grabbed his cloak and fled the area, still a bit shaken up. What have I done? Am I just as bad as the ones I fought? Am I just another monster? I questioned myself. It was then that I caught a glimpse of him. The real gold digger this time. At least, I thought it was him. But after nearly killing an innocent old man, I had to be absolutely sure. I followed him. I watched him hand off packages to some very happy people. He then left the area and moved down Parkside Drive. I followed him from a distance, staying in the shadows. Finally, he ducked into an apartment building, where I followed quickly thereafter. I watched him go up 3 flights of stairs before he turned and entered an apartment, closing the door quickly behind him. I went and knocked on his door, making sure to step to the side so that I could not be seen through his peephole. At first, there was no answer, so I waited and knocked again.
No thank you. Please leave.
Is all I heard through the door. I knocked again.
I said, please leave. I'm not interested.
He yelled back. I knocked again. He was now enraged, stomping toward the door, and when he opened it, I spun around the corner to greet him, gripping him by the throat. He had no time to react. He was done for. His eyes went wide as all the synapses in his brain misfired, and he went against his every survival instinct. He reached up with his massive, golden hand and drove one of his fingers through his own eye, popping it and driving the finger further into his brain before his power began to turn him to gold. His eye socket shifted to a sparkling yellow, followed by the rest of his head, a look of pain being frozen upon his face forever as his flesh became gilted. It was done. I had finally tracked down the bad guy that had gotten away, and he was dead. He wouldn't be hurting anyone else.
Daddy?
A little girl's voice called out from the room to my right. My eyes widened, and my heart sank. I turned to see a little blonde girl, no older than 6, standing in the doorway, clutching a teddy bear, her eyes glistening, welling up with tears.
What? Why?
She didn't know what to say. I simply stood there in shock, my eyes wide and my mouth agape beneath my bandana. I had just murdered this girl's father in front of her. I was a monster. I was every bit as bad as the beasts I hunted. I'm sorry, I blurted out, before running as fast as I could out the door and down the stairs. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know what to say to make it better. Everything just churned inside me into a cocktail of pain and emotion, and I found myself at some hole-in-the-wall bar in the middle of the night, drinking myself into a stupor.
Hey there. You feeling okay? You don't look so good.
I heard a woman's voice call out. I turned to see who was talking to me, and just for a moment, I could swear that I saw her. My love looking back at me. But that was impossible. She was murdered by Bonesaw, and what was left of her was long buried. This woman, however, had a striking resemblance to my deceased partner, and it caught me off guard at first. Yeah, it's been a rough day, I replied, taking another sip off my whiskey. I had started the night with whiskey and cokes, but soon dropped the soda and went right to the main source.
It's looking like you've been doing pretty good on your own here, but would you like me to buy you a drink?
She offered me. No, I couldn't ask you to do that, I replied.
No, it's okay. I want to. What would you like?
She asked. Only if you let me buy you a drink. That way it's fair, I replied with a drunken smile.
Deal. So what are we having?
She agreed. I'll have a whiskey on the rocks, I said to the bartender.
I'll have the same,
she replied, shooting me a smile. We chatted for a while, and I got even more drunkered up, and eventually she asked me something that kind of caught me off guard.
Hey, do you want to go back to my place? Maybe watch a movie or something?
She said with a smile, and a bit of an emphasis on the something. I quickly and very happily agreed before the two of us got outside, and she drove us back to her place. I was in no condition to drive myself, but she hadn't drank nearly as much as I had. When we got into her apartment, we didn't even turn on the lights yet, and we already had our tongues in each other's mouths. My hands roamed her body, and hers trailed over mine. We closed the door behind us, in the darkness, in a fit of passion. I kissed her deeply and held her close, longing for what felt like a century to be close to someone again. Our breathing grew heavier, as did our petting of each other's bodies. I broke the kiss for a moment to look into her eyes, and I was once again looking into the eyes of my deceased love. I reeled back in horror because the woman looked exactly like her in that moment. I rubbed my eyes to be sure that they were not playing tricks on me, and I looked down at her once again. She was herself once more, and I shook it off, figuring it was just the massive amounts of alcohol playing tricks on my mind. Things were about to get even more heavy as we both began to remove articles of clothing. Then she stopped and put a finger against my lips, a finger that I gently licked and kissed.
Wait, I want to show you something,
she said seductively before she reached over to flick on the lights. I could now see her splendor in all her glory, but that is not the only thing I saw. Behind her, I saw the gilded statue of the gold digger, frozen in an eternal look of pain and horror, his finger lodged deep into his eye socket. I jumped back in fear and shock, not knowing at all what was going on. I looked around to find myself in the recognizable apartment where I had killed Goldilocks. I was half expecting his daughter to come running out in tears over the death of her father, but I saw nothing.
What are you looking for?
The woman asked.
A scared little girl?
She asked, as her bones began shifting beneath her skin. Her flesh bubbled where cysts boiled up and popped before oozing and melting back into her. Her skin constricted and contorted as she shrunk in size to the same little girl that I had seen earlier.
Or perhaps an old man?
She said, before her bones rolled and cracked beneath her flesh, her skin bubbled and wrinkled, her flesh aging and hair turning gray as she changed into the robed, homeless man that I had almost killed.
Or a vagrant with the information you need?
She asked, her flesh reshaping itself once more, before shifting into a darker shade, appearing as the man I had gotten the information on the gold digger from.
I can be anything,
she said, as she grew in size, becoming a massive man, a huge bodybuilder.
That anyone,
she continued, before turning into a beautiful, young, blonde, clad in a tiny string bikini.
Wants me to be.
She finished, transforming once again into a beautiful form of my deceased love. Her bones shifting beneath her skin to reshape her skeletal structure and her clothing splitting out of her flesh. She was able to mimic any person perfectly. You did all this? I asked in shock and confusion. Why? I continued, not knowing what to think.
You are a murderer, just like us,
she began.
I just wanted to show you that you are a monster too,
she finished. Why would you do that? I asked her.
You really should listen to what the Master Solomon has to say.
Solomon? I asked, again shocked by what I had heard. You mean like the Solomon? I continued.
No. He's long dead. This Solomon is, well, more worthy of the ring of the last owner,
she added. He has the ring? I asked her, finally having a lead on the location of the Seal of Solomon.
Will you work for him?
She asked, still in the guise of my dead lover.
I can do anything you want. I can be anyone you want,
she said with a lure. I struggled with the sight before me. I was promised my every dream, a return to a life that I actually wanted to continue living. But it wouldn't have been real. I would rather live in a world of suffering that I know than a world where everything is fake and allow this evil to continue. No, I replied to her.
Suit yourself,
She said with a shrug before her flesh began to roll and turn once more. Her body grew and her bones cracked. She sprouted to immense proportions. She nearly doubled in height, now standing over 8 feet tall, and her arms and legs swelled up to the size of 25-gallon buckets. She was huge, and the thickness of her muscles became unnatural looking as she grew in size and stature. She then picked me up off my feet like I was a pillow, and she tossed me across the room where I slammed full force into the wall, my upper half crashing through the drywall before I fell to the floor. That hurt like hell, and I knew that I had to act quickly or that she would squash me like a bug. Quickly, I charged at her, removing my glove, and attempted to end her, but she simply swatted me away like a tiny nuisance. I crashed against the wall once again before stumbling back to my feet. I was hurting, and this girl's attacks were pretty damn painful. She was capable of being everything I couldn't be. Getting hit by her was like getting hit by a Mack truck. After getting swatted away a few times and left a bloody and broken mess, she decided that she had had enough of me. Her massive fist raised into the air and came downward with such force. It was almost as if it could be heard whipping through the air. I was somehow able to react quicker, though. I ducked away to my right and brought up my hand to grip her forehead. She froze in an instant, and I watched as her muscular form began to tremble. Her eyes rolled back into her head, and she attempted to hold herself back, desperately fighting her own body to keep from ending her own life. She dropped to the floor and began convulsing, her body beginning to constrict inward upon itself. Her form changed into several different incarnations of herself, her bones and skin shifting and contorting into unnatural shapes and colors. Her bones began to snap beneath her, constricting her skin and muscles, before finally her blood and innards started to force their way out of her body. She screamed in agony the entire time as her body closed in upon itself, unable to control her abilities any longer. Finally, her body stopped moving as the life left her vessel, leaving me alone in the apartment, not knowing exactly what was real. But I knew one thing. All that noise was sure to attract the police, and I wanted to get out of here as soon as possible. I didn't think that even Officer Kraft would have believed my story on this one, so I had to get out of there. I made sure that I wasn't spotted or followed, and I hightailed it back home, where I made sure to take a shower and wash the disgust off. It was a hell of a night, and I was in rough shape, but now I had some useful information, something really substantial.
Well, if you thought what you desire was your ally, think again. Apparently, it's out to kill you. So, choose the form of your destroyer carefully, and if you get asked if you're a god, you always say yes. But if you're chasing more fear on foot, don't run too far. There's more terror to be had next weekend, and until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday.
Social media can be very unpredictable, especially regarding horror content. If this content gets removed, all new content will be simultaneously presented on various websites provided in the description to this video. Make sure to follow me in other digital spaces so that you never miss out on the terror. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy what's here, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. Writing is a dream of mine, and it's all of you that make that dream come true.